Welcome to part 2. Last time we left off at this building, so we'll move on to the next area on the property where I found this obelisk. With a name chiseled in. This one was pretty cool, has like a triangle in the middle and some cool patterns on the side. This one has some columns and some patterns. This pattern we seem to find on the bottom of old school street lamps. And here we see the flower, which seems to be a lotus flower that we can find on hieroglyphs. Lotus flower was a symbol of regeneration and linked to the sun's cycle since it closed at night and opened in the morning. And here we see it both in the closed position and the open position. And the closed position looks a little bit like a fleur-de-lis, which we've seen it on some wrought iron before. Then this one was just what I found to be a cool statue. And then this symbol I hadn't seen before, but it looks like the 8-sided star. Has like a reverse peace sign or Y in there. Never seen that one before. This one's pretty cool. We got the double-headed eagle. And it says, Spes mea in Dio est, my hope is in God. And this is the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Also on the property we see a lot of these urns or vases. And this one is interesting because it had different types of stone masonry going on. And then here we see this Greek wave pattern called a meander, which we see in a lot of places. And then another obelisk. This one seems to be covered, and we see some tassels and initials. And here again we see the meander, the Greek wave pattern. This one's also really cool. So here we see a variation of that Greek wave pattern with an X, and then here this looks like a flower pattern in the middle, and then we have the pentagram with different things inside it. In the center is a book, to the side a cup. The other side seems to have something covered with a cloth, just like we saw on that obelisk just now. We got the chaff of wheat, crown with a cross, which we saw on a gravestone in part 1, and this, which looks like either a column or maybe a candle. Also had this cross, looks to be made out of copper. And then there was another church on the property. And here we got keystones, arches, columns, tower. On the outside we got this fountain, but this one's not working. A lot of fountains on the property, and this one not working. It also had another stained glass ceiling. This one seems to be missing a panel. And I guess this is where they kept the urns. In the back we see 3 arched windows, and we see the, looks like falling fruit. 3 arched windows. Again, 3 arched windows. We got the flower sun pattern we've seen before. Stained glass windows. This pattern along the side as well. And we can see the Antiquitech on the top. We got some copper right there. Mud flood windows. Portal with the keystones, and stained glass window with what looks to be maybe a reef. And these arches have a column in the middle. And then an elevator to get to the upper level, which has the chapel. And there's that copper top right there. Here's a shot looking back at that building that we were looking at before in part 1, just so you can see a little bit of the scale of how large it is, and how what I saw was only a small little sliver. Also, here's another obelisk with initials. And then this was really cool. We got columns and a crest. And inside, mosaic tiles with the meander Greek wave pattern again. And again, we see this symbol that we see everywhere. And even the ceiling, we have the mosaic tile. A lot of pieces there. Seems like this would be a lot of work. And here's the meander again. And then right here we see a few things. We have a copper lining. And a reef. Beautiful ceiling. Just seems like a lot of effort to put into a gravestone. We got the flower pattern on the outside. And then we have the meander again, but this is more like inverted upon itself, making like a T shape. And then we have Egyptian influence. Columns. Scarab with wings, which symbolizes the sun. This amazing brass door. This was on the door. Again, symbol for the sun. And here is the lotus flower again, open and closed. And seahorses? Not quite sure. I just thought this was a cool shot. Close up of the column. The bottom of the column, we see that shape that we saw earlier. And this is behind it. Looks kind of like a castle. And here we go on the back, the wrought iron or copper. This also has the lotus flower opening and closing. And a stained glass window with a dove. Not sure what this is. If any of you guys know, let me hit me up. Let me know. Interesting thing that we see around this structure is a channel around it. And like the structure we saw in part 1 that had the water in it, I feel like this maybe had water in there. And that probably affected the function of this structure in some way. And then we got another dome over here that looks like the dome on that building that we saw in part 1. But this one just seems to be on some bricks and not on columns. And there you can see a little spire on top. And there it is. So this was on the back. We have the meander again, now facing a different direction. And this structure again, which just kind of reminds me a little bit of a castle. More columns, and these urns. Looks like there's maybe a flame on this one, or possibly a closed lotus flower. Here we see the crest, and all these little teeth that we saw. Back in episode 3, Second Church of Christ Sciences. again, flame. And these really cool doors. We got the lions. As you can see, there's some straw on there, some stuff from the trees. I actually cleared it off myself because, yeah, it just seemed like nobody had touched this thing in a very long time. So that was really cool to see lions on the door. There's that close-up of that flame. The stained glass window. Can't quite tell what's going on the top, but it looks like a column on the bottom and rays of lights coming from the back. And this just looks like it was on a huge slab of rock right here. There's a seam all the way over here, and not another one all the way till here. So it looks like just sitting on a huge slab. And then in another part of the cemetery, we got another fountain with bricks and a statue with some animals down here. I want to say a horse, maybe a lion, maybe a dog. These ones are a little bit odd, not completely clear on what they are. And here's what the inside looked like. So I'll leave it here for now. Stay tuned for part 3.
There's got to be more to this thing we call time, cause the future can't be seen in terms of straight lines. So combine the sign of instincts and wisdom's eyes, stroke the lows and highs of this ride we call life.